So my name is AJ La Rosa. I'm the chair of the Burlington Development Review Board. And I'm going to call our April 2nd, 2024 meeting to order. We have an agenda with several items on it. We're going to take testimony since they're all for public hearing in the order that they're listed on the agenda. And we are going to go do that. So first item on our agenda is ZP 2423 Catherine Street. David Barron, Erica Housekeeper, Dixie O'Connor. Conditional use to demolish existing garage and construct a new habitable building in the same footprint. Do we have the applicant with us here? Is there anybody here besides you wants to speak on this application, either in person or on Zoom? Raise your hand. Nope.
You're on Zoom, raise your hand if you're interested in this application. Doesn't look like it, AJ.
All right, so we'll have you raise your right hand.
Oh, no, I take that back. We had a delayed hand raise from Dixie O'Connor.
Okay. So anybody who wants to offer testimony on this, please raise your right hand. Yeah, that'd be you. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter under consideration is true and correct and pains and penalties of perjury? Yeah. Okay. Very simple, public hearing item. So we have often asked the applicant or the representative to just explain to us what you want to do. We have the staff report, we have the analysis, but why don't you walk us through what you want?
Sure. We're looking to tear down our current garage, rebuild living space in the same footprint. The current building, originally we were just trying to rehab it, but the foundation is crumbling and cracked and the back of the building is sacking. No contractors with the foundation.
Okay. You seen a copy of the staff report?
Yes.
Do you have any issues with that staff report? Any concerns or questions? No. We on the board have any questions? It was marked for consent, like public hearing items, so any questions or for the applicant?
When did you move in?
We've been here 2013.
So it was originally gonna be an ADU, and then under this proposal, it's just looks more like a kind of like suite guest bedroom type.
Yeah.
I think there were stipulations on ADU for square footage maybe that we didn't. I mean, I think we were classifying it as that, but I can't remember. There was something we were hitting for it to be technically an ADU. But the plan remained the same.
Did you try to do any sort of rehab or?
Oh, yeah, and then we had an engineer come out and then
Like all this work was in the past couple months?
Oh,
or
Last year,
we've been, working with Maple Hill and it's like, and then it just.
we started the process and it was really when they started to take the deck that we were getting rid of, that they really saw that however the foundation was built. I think there were cinder blocks around the perimeter and most of those would dissolve. And then when you also look at the back, I think there's an animal den, but the whole back, it's the interior has plywood and a couple of contractors thought that that's really right now if we were that wherever it's trying along.
You know, it's always unfortunate that we lose historic buildings, but I do appreciate that you're doing your best to match it in style, exterior form. It's not something we've seen all the time when these happen, so we appreciate that. There's some nice historic additions and renovations in the area. This should be. Dixie's with you.
Yes.
Dixie, do you have anything to add that we should know?
No, I really don't. I think Dave and Erica presented the project very well. And yeah, we're basically taking down an existing garage, putting up a building that looks just like it. Only instead of a garage, it's gonna have a living area with a 3/4 bath inside. There'll be no kitchen. And also, the plan shows the patio that we'll be putting down as well.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone? Right, we want to make a motion on this one. It was marked for consent. I'm not sure. We need a lot of deliberation.
But we need to adopt staff's findings to recommendation.
Okay, 1 second. All those in favor? Approved.
Thank you.
Thanks
Very much.
for your project.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on our agenda, 140 North Prospect Street, ZP 2458. Seeking a variance from North Setback to add ADA compliant wheel pad on lot with 3-foot by 4-foot connection to the house. And Brad's recused on this, so thank you. This is appeal of. Scott, is this an appeal or
It's not an appeal, it's a variance request.
variance?
Yep.
And this is to add, I want to be clear about something, because I did a little research and I think I want to note something. This is to add an ADA compliant structure, is that right? So I was involved in this a couple of years ago, but there's a case out there and it's Union Bank. And it says this board is subject under the ADA to make reasonable accommodations to the application of its zoning regulations. And such accommodation may be necessary to afford brackets, handicapped individual, equal opportunity to use and enjoy itself. And that is federal law that I think we're beholden to. And so we have to take into consideration reasonable accommodation standard in dealing with an ADA building, which is a little different than the variance standard that I think we have to take into consideration. And so the question that we have to keep in mind, it's not, I think, strictly by the variance standards, but also whether or not we are making a reasonable accommodation to accommodate an ADA request under Article 2 of the code. So what we'll need to hear, as it asserts in Union Bank, is that this is a reasonable accommodation to the extent that it conflicts with our zoning regulations. So I say that to give you the floor to respond and address that.
Perhaps I will speak first. I'm the grandmother of Hisham Awatani, who was one of the 3 Palestinian students shot on North Prospect Street on Saturday, November the 25th. Bullet still is in his spine. He is paralyzed from here down. He has returned to Brown University. Since I moved here, I moved to live next door to my younger son in 2013. And since that time, Hisham and his family regarded my home as theirs. They live in Ramallah on the West Bank. My daughter and son-in-law are registered to vote at my house. Hisham's college address in the United States is my house. He will, we hope, graduate from Brown University in a couple of years. He's an extremely bright student. He is bound to go to graduate school here in the United States. So I anticipate my home being his for the next 6 or 7, 8 years. I want him to be autonomous and independent. He was just saying, my house is not suitable for an elevator or for a stair lift. The bathrooms are too small to accommodate somebody in a wheelchair. I want him to be able to come and go without my help. If he has the wheel pad next to my house, he can enter my house freely through the connecting passageway. On the other side, he can leave and go down a ramp and go downtown with his friends if he wants to in his wheelchair. And he's not beholden to me as I get older unless able to help him. And so this is the vision that our friends over here who invented the wheel pad were able to offer that as, in fact, it was Becca Barnett who suggested I look into the wheel pad as a way in which I can meet my needs and his needs. And my friend here, Patrick, is helping me with the technical aspects of it. So Patrick, you got something else?
Yes, so the reason we want it on the north side of the building is, first of all, the south side, as looking in the report, the south side putting it on the driveway, it's a shared driveway with 136 North Prospect. So that would infringe on the neighbors.
Blocking driveway. That's not an
And
option.
putting it in the backyard would making him go through the yard to get to the house. Not make it common.
Could you, so, right, so you couldn't connect the wheel pad to the actual inside of the house without taking off the deck. Through the deck, is that right?
Is there, so one of the additional suggestions was, since your neighbor happens to be your son, to potentially merge the lots. I know it's can be a complicated process, but is there a reason not to just merge and then unmerge once you?
Well, I imagine that if I consulted an attorney, he would say it would be endangering the inheritance rights of my other children and grandchildren if my property is tied up with their son, with my sons. The problems of disconnecting legally seems to be a cumbersome way of compromising.
What's on the other side, just so I understand, because the site plan doesn't quite show it. North of the wheel pad, what does that look like?
That's my son's house.
Yeah, but what are we actually looking at on that side? I mean, is there a house there? Are there plantings, screenings? What would be north of the wheel pad between sort of what's white blank space now?
So currently there's a fence. And then right now there's a trampoline sort of where it is that it's sitting between the two properties.
So this would sit up against the fence on the boundary line, is that right?
Correct.
We probably will take the fence down so that Hisham can have a ramp that would extend towards my son's house so that he can visit them easily as well. We don't want any gates or doors.
Okay, it's not in our application now, so we couldn't say yes or no.
Right.
When I'm in that photo, what are we specifically looking at there? That's the house, it's your house, right?
With the red dot is
Mhm.
140 North Prospect.
And it's the white,
The white longer one is the wheel pad, and then the smaller square is the 3x4 connection to the house.
Right.
And that is recommended by wheel pad to get that far off to do any kind of maintenance. And there's also a heat pump on the north side of 140. So can't get that close.
and so there's currently a fence there, so if I look, so if that's north, this would be. This would be east,
Driveway
right?
south.
Right, so set east, the back of the house is east, right?
Correct.
What's along that fence, like planted gardens or what is
There's
that,
a,
landscaping?
yeah, landscaping, and there's a plum tree, about a 30-foot plum tree there. Sort of between where the walkway to the neighbor, to Marion's son's house, and where the wheel pad square is, there's about a 30-foot plum tree.
So the house to the north is son's house.
Correct.
And is there, for the wheel pad itself, does that require utility hookups?
It does.
And where will that come from? Will that come through the house?
It will come through the 3-foot by 4-foot connection inside.
So that's for transit between the house and the building. So
Yeah, sewer, water line, and electric line.
And will the wheel pad stay on, stupid question, maybe stay on wheels, or does it, once it's connected to the house, or does it actually just sit down on like a concrete block foundation?
It's just on it's called pavers, and then has jacks on the side of it. You take the wheels off. Well,
And then it can be moved theoretically, you close the connection.
correct.
That's my assumption, that when Hisham is living independently, fully employed somewhere, I will pass that wheel pad on to another family that needs it.
Or you can take it with.
And or he can take it with him.
It's basically a mobile home, small.
In a sense,
Is it gonna be placed behind the fence? Or,
Yes, the 6 inches between the fence and the side.
so if from the street, you're gonna see the fence, then you would see,
Oh, we have to
Yeah.
remove the fence to bring it in, so.
but then we'll put it back,
right, that's what I'm asking. And then, do you have to move the heat pump, the condenser?
It shouldn't be, it was 4 feet away, 3 feet away, sorry, that we can move it in. The person that's delivering it, that is their job, not to hit.
Oh, you know what, I didn't swear you all in, so anyone who wants to speak on this application, could you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give is true and correct on the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear something.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know that.
May I interrupt just
Yeah.
to pass this so that people can see what we're talking about?
Sure.
And then so this one in the upper right-hand corner is on Pine Street right now. So there is one in Burlington already. I don't know if we have one of those. So I unfortunately have to leave. I'm the owner of the company of Will Pad. My husband is the architect designer, the guy who came up with the idea. We've had 18 placed around the country, our two, my colleague and our director of work. Usually the connectors are 5 foot by 5 foot. We've been able to figure out how to make it smaller to deal with this current situation. And as to the electricity and sewer and water, it connects to the host homes. Electricity takes an electrician anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, and the same with the water.
where does ingress happen? Is in order to get into this structure?
In order to get into the structure, there is a ramp that's placed. And then through the connector, there's the person who access to it.
So sorry, it's an exterior ramp?
Correct.
Where does that fall on the plans?
In the front.
So it's not on there now.
It's not on there now. From the south,
the west.
the west, from the street level.
Or will there be some form of walkway or pavers or anything to provide access to that? I guess how from the street, because currently there's a fence there, right?
No, the fence is only on,
That's on.
it's only on this side.
Okay, so access would be around, but.
Well, you could just go to the front of the house too, you can put it back in front of the house too.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You can put it in front of the house,
Independent.
you could, or you can put it on the side, either one of them,
Well, okay, let's.
that's not part of that.
Where do you want the ramp to go to the wheel pit? How do you want the individual to access?
As I So she wants to have it access through son's property on the side, on the south side.
So,
So
so the door to the wheel pad, if without going through the house, right? Would be facing the street or facing north?
Backyard or?
Facing north. Facing north. Right now, there's a trampoline where the ramp would be. The trampoline will move to another part of some.
Okay. What would the face of the wheel pad facing the street?
So on that,
So
Jake, well,
if you're gonna, you can stand near the microphone so we can catch it on your record. And just introduce yourself.
yeah, hey there, my name is RJ Adler, I'm with wheel pad, the front side of the wheel pad facing the street is gonna be paneled with wood. And then on the top, it's got a high privacy window, you're not gonna be able to see into it, but it lets in light, that end is the bathroom end of the wheel pad. So, you can't see any photos of it. You can see an interior photo of it, in the top right here. And you can see on the screen right now, you can somewhat see on the side, it's hard to see, the high privacy window into the bathroom. On the tongue side of the wheel pad.
So in a plane level, it'll, the first level of the house will be in the same plane as the level of the wheel.
yes,
Yes.
So the height of it will be pretty much a single story that you would see from the street.
yes,
And you'll have to remove these two shrubs to get.
yes, which I've never liked. I'm so pleased to have this in. There used to be 3, I cut one down. The other 2 I left because I believe in nature.
You plan
They're
on
ugly.
putting anything back there or?
I'm planting wildflowers.
Okay. So, I mean, there is one challenging thing that I think we have. Is that I learned, besides what's obvious, to be part of our decision making, is that we can't approve that access ramp at this time. It's not shown on the plans, and it's on a different property than the one applied for. So, no matter what we do, you have to be aware that that's not part of our approval or proceeding. That would have to come back, I think, before it's not on the plans,
Mhm.
then wait a second, and it's not shown on the plans, and it's on a different property than the one noticed, and you can't necessarily, even if it's a relative or family member, without some specific representation or agreement that a zoning permit can then attach a condition that, by the way, here's a ramp on your property now.
Mhm.
We can't approve that right down. So I do want to flag that before we get into our deliberations. Yes,
So AJ, I'm gonna undo what you just said.
we can, why?
Well, so this is a variance request. You guys approve it, you approve breaking the rules, so. The applicant then comes back with an application to do it.
But it's minimal,
So-
right? It's minimal.
So the application comes back, or the applicant comes back with an application to actually do it. And that will include ramp. The ramp is specifically called out as an exception to setbacks and lot coverage. I
So,
don't see a problem.
so-
with it crossing property boundary, we need to say.
right, that's, okay, so a variance request doesn't then trigger the ability to do the actual work.
Correct.
It triggers the ability to come before us.
This is one piece, can we put this thing in setback? That's all.
And if the answer is yes to that, then they have to come back with the actual plan showing it.
Yeah.
Well, that actually does undo my statement, so that is fair. Regardless, you can't build a ramp.
Well, they could build a ramp.
But not
Not from-
Not from this.
Correct.
Okay. Right there.
I have a question for staff.
Do you have a question?
If this had wheels on it, what makes it still count as a structure?
Good question.
Where it's proposed, it's not about the unit at that point. It's about where it sits, which is basically deep storage or parking. That's why I said it goes in the driveway. The driveway's already there, it's on wheels, and it wouldn't count towards anything. But that's predicated on it having wheels, and I'm pretty sure I saw something in the application that said the wheels could or would say. But that would be a moot point if you grant the variance for it to be a structure. And so,
Because you couldn't park a wheel trailer in the setback. Correct. Normally, and I couldn't.
But the wheel trailer would be in the setback technically of the south unit because it's an existing driveway that's a non-conformity.
correct.
And also the wheel trailer can park on the driveway in the setback. Yes. Park on the driveway in the setback.
Were this to be on in the driveway, would just back towards the garage, would it completely limit access to the garage?
And the neighbor's access to that garage to shared driveway.
I guess in the photos, it looks like it splits. And if, yeah, I know you thought through all this, but just kind of thinking through that.
That the actual wheel pad splits like this.
No, sorry, the driveway.
Oh, the driveway, yes, it's split.
Oh, I see what you mean. But they have to pull through the shared.
Yeah.
And they need that attachment for the space. So I haven't with those dimensions, probably it's pretty far open.
And you use that driveway currently?
Oh, yes,
And like that garage, that's pretty far.
yes, yes. And it's difficult to back out when my neighbors have their cars there.
Question for staff, is there anything in terms of time limits? We approve something for 2 years and must be reapplied for.
The variances are limited to 2 years, I think. So they would need to file an application to do this within 2 years, and then the zoning permit itself is valid for 3. But we could specify how longer or shorter.
I saw something in the CDO talking about variances that they were reviewed on a yearly basis. Is that accurate? Maybe that's it.
You check me. It might be a year tag on a variance. I know it's shorter than 3. But I see that being cheap here.
You're asking about.
Yeah, I think it just said that on a yearly basis, the variances are looked at. I don't know necessarily by our body, but I thought there was.
Like, you know, we can't leave it open-ended.
Right.
Ongoing review.
Yeah.
There's a shorter time frame to do it, whether it's a year or 2 years, shorter than 3.
We struggle with that, and we've had people come back and report to us. It's not really much we can do other than
Right.
get their report.
Well, on Depot Street, they had a front yard setback variance because of wonky neighboring properties, but that expired. They had to come to renew it.
Is that steep slope property that? You had a point.
Joseph Simpati, your deliberations have covered it. Scott made some valid points. I was gonna share some of the experiences with municipalities across the country. We have 18 placements in places like Boston, Cape Cod, Washington State, and we've heard some of the concerns because frankly, and I appreciate the questions and the integrity which you're approaching it. It's a unique product. It does not exist. It shouldn't exist. Frankly, every first floor of every home in the United States going forward should be built with an accessible bathroom. It's ridiculous that they're not still. But that's the way it is, and consequently, we feel that help out.
Sorry to keep talking about ingress and such, but so regardless of this exterior ramp that's planned potentially towards the north, towards the south. Where we approve this variance and subsequent allocations, there would be access possible through the house.
Yes.
To get.
Yes, yes.
That could be an issue.
And there's adequate spacing of the window. There's a window on the suite pad. Sorry, I'm just trying to speak in the mic. That's adequate size for life safety purposes. So that door, if it weren't operational, it would still meet life safety standards.
Is there an expectation about which entrance would be used? North or the south?
On the suite pad. So the swing door is typically the door that people connect through. That's where all the connections for plumbing, electric, and wastewater will go in and out. So that's the typical connection. In this case, it's also really the only way we can map it.
What is the height? What is the final limit?
Roughly 13.5 feet. I don't know exactly based on where the bottom floor is gonna be to make sure it's level.
You mentioned removing some bushes, and just looking in the aerial, those are the ones on the street side of the fence?
Yes.
Okay, so from the street, there'll be a clear sight line to the fence and then the structure.
But, you know, there'll be landscaping first.
What's the deck construction back? What is the back actually built like?
It's track stacking.
Track stacking, is it surface or is there like a grade to make difference?
There's 4 steps up, 5 steps up to it,
And then that goes into what, kitchen area back?
or the back area, but there's another step beyond that, so from the deck to the house, it's another step.
And then what's the backyard grade? Is it sloped?
It's flat.
Anybody else in the audience want to speak on this? Anybody on Zoom want to comment?
So raise your hand. No hands, AJ.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I guess to jump off the last set of questions, did you consider the backyard at all?
My feeling was that in the backyard, in terms of weather, it would be difficult for my grandson to come in, travel in a wheelchair, and building a passageway out into the backyard didn't seem feasible.
We'd have to take off the deck. Move the deck, connect to the house. Is there space to do that there? Would there even be space to connect the wheel pad to the house? In the space like between the garage where the deck is and the back of the house? Is that?
You mean, when you remove the deck,
If you took off the deck. Wheel pad fit up against the house with the garage where it is.
question is how you would get in, you would have to turn it at 90 degrees.
Not even sure you could get it in.
I couldn't get it, I don't know if you could get it in. I'm not saying you couldn't, I don't know if you could at 24
I
foot,
think it would be very difficult.
make a 90 turn.
Cause you'd have to come in through the side, make a 90 turn in the space and get it in there. You might not be able to do it.
And it would change the use of the backyard. So, Marion and her sons share the backyards together. Her grandsons, travel through that backyard. You can see a path deep in the snow, for instance. And it would take up a lot of space back there, not to mention sort of having to change the deck and that arrangement. They would most likely need to take down the plum tree in order to get the model back there. That is in between their two properties, so it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to get it there, the right spot.
And then also would block the access back door. You would have to come to the front door to go to the garage.
You mentioned that you don't expect this to be here forever. Just roughly the timeline you were saying.
Well, Michelle will graduate from Brown in 26 or 27, depending on manages physically. He's bound to go to graduate school. He's a genius, so he'll get a PhD. 3-4 years more, yeah. I can't think after 7 years he's still really interested in that. But
I hope so.
but yes, but he'll not, I will no longer feel that I need to provide him.
And Wheelpad has the ability to repurpose the model and send it out to another family that's here, there, or anywhere else.
Right. Well, I appreciate the engaged discussion on this. I think we're gonna wrap up the public hearing and take this into deliberation. So, thank you.
Was there anyone?
Yeah, yes. So the next item on our agenda is 230 Main Street. And this is an appeal, ZAP 24-1, appeal of.
I forgot to say to you.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
We'll reach a decision tonight, and so
Thank you.
you can contact staff tomorrow and find out. This is a ZAP 24-1, appeal of administrative officers. Notice of violation. Dated December 27th, 2023. Change of use to surface a parking lot without zoning permit. This is an appeal, so we typically ask the city to go first and establish the basis for the zoning violation and why they issued one and why we should uphold it. So, Ted, are you gonna do that?
Ted's retired from the city. I'm speaking for the city on this item, but Ted can certainly weigh in as the public.
I'm prepared to weigh in because I have more time invested in property here in the city.
Okay, so Scott, you're speaking for the city?
Yep.
So anybody who wants to speak on this, please raise their right hand. Do you swear to the testimony you're about to give in the matter under consideration is true and correct in the names and penalties of perjury?
I do.
All right, so Scott, you're going. Is that what we say?
Yes. So there's a fairly long history here, but I won't get into because I can do that sort of thing. So we have before the board tonight an appeal of a notice of zoning violation that was issued in November of 2023. And that violation notice, to paraphrase, cites unpermitted use of the property as a surface parking area, and non-compliance with the zoning permit that was issued to demolish the Midtown Hotel and convert the property to green space. So that's the approved site plan that goes with the reference zoning permit. The bottom, although it's fairly basic, shows what's supposed to be green landscaping in front. That zoning permit was valid through, I want to say, November 2020, give or take, 2023. It's expired for a few months. And the property continues to be not green, continues to be gravel and asphalt. And city staff simply requests the board to uphold that the property is not in compliance with that permit.
Scott's question. We extended this review for a while, and if I'm correct, there was some discussion that this would be a laydown site or a parking site during Main Street renovations. Was that?
That was talked about while the permit was still valid. We talked about potentially signing that into an agreement. Never got signed, never became an agreement. Fast forward to this coming before the board in February, it was deferred to allow more time for the parties to work out an agreement. There's been a few versions of agreements floating around, including a few today, and nothing's been signed, so here we are.
Okay. What would be the impact of upholding the violation? Could follow up with that. Would it be that they could apply for more parking for cots? Or would they be prohibited from doing that? What would be the sort of impact? Because clearly there was some understanding for a period of time that somebody could park there or something. No?
Depends who you talk to.
Okay. Was Cots parking there?
So my understanding COTS was parking there while the permit was still live.
Okay.
Like, if you might recall, we issued a violation notice a couple of years ago. I remember these.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing there was that violation, again, to paraphrase, said, hey, you're not complying with the permit. Appealed it to the DRB. DRB said, well, we think there are a violation here, but we think it's different. We think it's that you're running parking. And so of course, DRB didn't just uphold or deny the violation notice. So when it got to court, the court said, well, you can't do that. So basically we lost that on technicality. So then we let the permit run its course through November 23 and issued a new notice of zoning violation after that permit had expired because the property was still not green.
So what did we not do the last time this came through us?
The board did not directly uphold or overturn the notice of violation. Violation notice saying you're not complying with the permit, right? Where it said, well, we think there's a violation, but it's not there. We think it's because you're running parking. Right, so the board said something different for the violation. So the court said, you can't do that. That's different from what the violation.
So we would have had to deny the violation and you bring a different.
Correct. That's kind of what we did, but we just really didn't know that. Source.
The court process said that the permit was still valid, so we couldn't uphold it as a violation until the permit expired. Which is why we had to wait until the permit expired before we started the process of it.
So the permit expired in November 24, 2023.
Correct.
And you brought a violation after that. So the specific violation now is what? So that we make no mistake.
It's being used as surface parking. It's not
Being
compliant.
used as surface parking.
Yes.
And that was not compliant.
It's not.
I thought it was,
Permit's expired, so who cares what?
Well, that's the most recent permit operation in that government.
isn't the violation that's not green?
Yes.
That's technically the violation of the permit.
The statement made last time was saying.
Parking still,
That was made last time was that the board decided something technically different than the. Technicalities aside, the property.
So the description of violation here is change of use to surface parking / parking lot without a zoning. So green has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
There's actually two different pieces. The change of use, illegal use of a parking space, and the non-conformity with the permit that's been approved, the green space. So that's why it says a change of use is being used as surface parking, which is not permitted.
what it says here, it's, you know, service parking lot and the property not compliant with the zoning permit.
Right, that's
The
a
zoning permit says it should be green, but did that zoning permit expire?
yes.
Yeah, but that's the,
Well, it's expired.
But it was
expired.
actually, the Midtown is gone.
The demolition of the motel was contingent upon the use of it as a.
As a green space, okay.
So they did part of the permit.
Yeah.
Is surface parking an allowed use in this district?
Right, we just whispered solely, it's not allowed as a. use.
Right, but if you had a building, you could obviously have surface parking. No, you can't. That's the Champlain Farms. Not the case from that corner there.
Oh, I don't know, somebody got.
Okay. Ted, you got anything else for us to know? You good?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, let's hear from the property owner. Jeff? Okay.
Any ground rule, any?
Limit your profanity.
Maybe a little history about the infamous Midtown Motel. Are you, everybody familiar with what that used to look like? We purchased it back in 1995, thinking that we would have a chance to redevelop it in concert with the city. And that was a slight miscalculation on our part. We ran it for 10 years, the motel, closed it in 2005. Because there was the changes to the codes, we would have had to sprinkle it and do a lot of things. It didn't seem like it was the right way to move forward, so we shut the motel down. It was a primary use back then. We parked underneath the motel on a surface parking lot. And in our 1986 permit, it was referenced as leased parking in that permit in 1986. So in 2005, when we shut down the motel, I'm learning a lot along the way here. That I didn't bring this up in 2001 when we tried to get demolition permit. But that became the primary use, surface parking. And the city never said stop parking on it. So we continued to park on it for 15 years. So then we thought, I said, the roof that failed in 2020, so rather than spend $30,000 on a new roof, said, okay, time to tear the motel down. I thought that would have been welcome to tear that motel down. And I was met with a series of obstacles, one of which was the threat of a demolition by neglect, because there is a code in the ordinance, something in the ordinance that says demolition by neglect, the property owner can be fined.
I remember going through this because the Midtown Hotel was deemed historic.
Well, I come to the historic in a second, but I said, I'm not, this is not demolition by neglect, because I could stop everything and put a new roof on it, but that's not a wise use of anybody's resources, so. And then I reminded the city that demolition by neglect might be similar to Memorial Auditorium, because that's coming through the same issues. So we stopped talking about demolition by neglect, but then I had to prove to the city that it was not historic. So I went to the State Historic Review Board, won that round. They said, no, it's not historic, it's just old and dilapidated, so they said you tear it down. So we said, okay, tear it down, and Scott asked me, what are you gonna do with it? I said, well, we'll continue to use it for parking. And he says, no, you can't use it for parking, because it's a change of use. And I scratched my head, it's a change of use, it's a parking. And he said, well, it's going from structured parking, right, to surface parking. It's just because I'm tearing the building down, the pavement that the motel, the parking sat on had no reference to the building above it. The structure, not like you build them today, where the concrete would support everything. This was separate of the 1958. So and I have an engineering report after the fact that says it is not structured parking, it was always surface parking. So we should have been able to continue to park on it. Nonetheless, we wanted to tear it down, so we agreed, and we agreed to grass it in. So then we had 3 years to comply with our permit conditions, but we were threatened with fines by staff because we would continue to park on it. We had to go to court that we referenced earlier, and we won because we have 3 years to comply with the conditions. Then Cox calls me and says, hey, we're doing a project up the street. We need a staging area for contractor parking. I said, go talk to staff because they told me no. Lo and behold, Cox was given the green light to use it for parking. I confirmed it with Scott.
By whom?
Was that?
Who gave permission?
Staff.
We never executed anything, right?
No, we didn't. Absolutely, we didn't, because I didn't think it was necessary. I'm like, I'm just a regular guy trying to get along with everybody. I said, Cox, go ahead and use it, no charge, you got it. Okay, so Cox uses it. Cox goes beyond the 3 years because they were delayed. So I let staff know that, hey, what do you want to do here? I was never explicitly told that you got to come in here and get a permit condition, this and that. So Cox went beyond their date. Now, of course, we're in November, and you don't plant grass in November, kind of foolish. So I figured, and then meanwhile, back it up a little more. In early 2003, about a year ago, I learned that DPW was looking to do this Main Street project and would like to maybe use our lot for a staging area. So, great, let's work something out. So those conversations were ongoing, right down. Planning and zoning is over there, DPW is over here, I think, same building. I didn't think I needed to like hash this out with anybody. If the city wants to use our land for a project, I'm happy to help out. So lo and behold, we get notice of violation. Like, why would I grass in a lot in November, knowing that the city would rip it up in February? That makes no sense to me either.
Does DPW still want to use it?
Absolutely, and we're this close to an agreement. But as you referenced earlier, agreements are flying back and forth. We probably would have had it papered over by now, but the city attorneys kind of, there's been delays, obviously. And so we're very close, so that's where we are. And so back to over the last 3 years, we've learned a lot of things about how this should play out, especially when you think about if this is grassed in, it will likely become some type of homeless encampment. We all know this is a big problem in town. I've already had 3 tents on this lot that we had to remove. So I think it would be foolish, and I've talked to Chief Murad, I've talked to the fire chief. Neither one of those folks wants to see this grassed in because they know what will happen. So it seems foolish to grass it in. I'm suggesting maybe we gravel it to some extent. And then maybe I'm not asking for parking because that would be bridge too far. We don't need to talk about parking.
So,
But I think
is parking happening on the lot right now?
there was one, I can't control the public. Ireland's truck was there today because they happened to be using it, but that's why
It's Cots parking.
What's that?
It's Cots parking.
No, Costa's project is done. Yes.
Same.
We have tenants in our other, we own the duplex next to it. We have tenants that should park on their side, they sometimes park over there. But that's about it. And then some contractors come and go because the project's not going now, so. Not everybody knows that.
Which project's on?
The Main Street project and Ireland's equipment and everything. And not everybody understands which property is which, so.
So other than the Main Street project possibly using the lots of staging area, what's your goals for this?
Well, it's no secret, the city, there's a development group that we're talking with. And so it'll likely change hands in the future. There's a development agreement with that group with the city now. So over the years, we had a lot of ideas for this, where we had REI wanted to be here, Target wanted to do 2-story building. We worked with the UVM on their arena idea. We worked with Burlington High School, they were looking at high school sites. So we've been a good player for the community. We've analyzed a lot of different things in conjunction with the city. So kind of, we don't feel that we've been treated very well over the years about, here we are, we go to court. We deemed to be in violation, but we did Cots a big favor. It just seems like an odd place to be, given what we know today.
You wish that you didn't say you grass it over.
What's that?
Would you wish you never said you would grass it? I mean, that's the basic problem here.
Well, the DRB could say, if Chief Murad is the fire chief, and we know we have a homeless problem, why do we want to put the city in this position?
That you agreed to,
That's
the basic issue.
I would like to. I'm asking you to consider, for one, an extension so that we have time to finish our negotiation with the city. And a reconsideration of the landscape plan moving forward. And I'm not gonna own it, so, but I don't wanna saddle the city with the homeless again.
Well,
So,
we can't consider we on this notice of appeal. Subject to. Apparently, got it wrong the first time. Slightly wrong the first time. I don't think we could reevaluate the landscaping now. I think limited to say, yes, there's a violation or no, there's a violation. That's it. So,
We probably have some sort of question if you were that, some leeway in terms of creating a window to address the violation and what the, when addressing the violation is going back to the original permit or filing some other application.
yeah,
Do something different, but so we can adjust that window.
But that's true. I would just mention a nuance here that hasn't come up. There's a reason why the approved plan showed it. That's because it's in the form code. Jeff and I have this discussion.
this is form-based code district.
Any development on that lot has to comply with the form code.
Right.
The only alternative
More
is
flexibility.
nothing.
The only,
The only alternative is nothing.
what is nothing, right?
Nothing is a
Like,
lot.
can't make it black hole.
It can't have a walkway, it can't have a fence, it can't have a shed, it has to
Just
comply with the form-based code or be
So it's just dirt.
dirt with grass. It could just.
Just grass
be
is
dirt.
something.
It could just be dirt, but our friends down the hall at Stormwater wouldn't like that. So it was approved as grass with some landscaping.
So grass in the form-based code is effectively nothing.
Perfect.
Right.
Well, it's not
Unless the
development.
park, then it's a thing.
Well, it pertains to our definition of development.
If I were to reapply. And knowing what we now know. And knowing that the decision could have been made, because there's a gray area here about construction parking, surface parking, change of use that I was caught up in. And now that I have an engineering report, which I'm going to share with you, that says, in a picture that says, that pavement does not connect to your motel. The foundation of that motel and the supports supported the building only, did not support the parking pavement. So if you have to make it that, if we have to get to that amount of detail, I have it. That says it should never been a change of use, because my primary use in 2005 changed from motel to parking. The tax records will show it, you stop collecting tax from us on the rooms. So in 2005, it became a primary use of parking that continued all the way till I demoed the building. I inadvertently agreed to that because I desperately wanted to tear it. It was rotting, it was falling apart. I had asbestos I had to do. Cost us 140 grand to take the thing down the correct way, with asbestos abatement and everything. So we've been good citizens through this whole process. And so I'd like to say, if that's the only option today under the current permit, could I come back, reapply? You make the decision that, okay, it's surrounded by all of this parking. Anyway, it's all gonna get demoed and rebuilt soon because the city's now engaged with a redevelopment of that whole block. Why would we ever wanna grass it in, create a homeless encampment for 3 or 4 years and then rip it all up again and have it developed? I'm happy to
I
come
mean,
back.
we're bound by the zoning ordinance, so, I mean.
But if you choose to, if you.
We can't unring the bell from 2021, so that's one thing, you can't collaterally attack it with a reapplication. That's not to say you can't apply for something else with its own window of compliance, or that there isn't something else you could have on that building, on that site. Or that there isn't another way through it, but I can't, certainly not now, I wouldn't advise one way or the other. But we can't reconsider or reopen what was decided 3 years
What's the status of having a violation, if I understand right, this is a violation of an expired permit?
Correct.
So,
The violation of an expired permit and what's there couldn't be permitted anyhow.
ago. But the permit said, take it down and make it grass.
Yep.
And the time to put the grass in.
Yep.
Passed, that's really what expired. And when it was not grassed as of the end of that period, the violation arose.
I guess what I would like you to clearly tell us is why you don't want to grass it? Is it just financial when you're planning on?
Well, for one
Changing
thing,
hands
if I
of
grass it in tomorrow, the city's gonna rip it up in 3 weeks when we sign the agreement to use that as a staging area. So, and it didn't make any sense to me to grass it in October when Cots was still parking on it. Because the city was already talking to, they evidently, nobody was talking to each other in this building, but planning and zoning was ready to buy me, and DPW is asking us to use it. So.
So the best case scenario for you is that the city uses it for the Great Streets project, or it's called, that lasts 1.5 years. And then the block that everybody's trying to figure out comes up, and then you blend into that. But if that doesn't happen, you're back in violation.
We still raise the violation now.
But hopefully by that time, the new owners will be talking to you about their new project.
Really about the window of compliance that Brad had talked about.
Yeah, I got it, I guess.
But the window of compliance, if I had thought that I needed to do this, but when I'm talking to DPW about ripping up my lot. And I didn't connect those dots for 6 weeks or however long it was. It seems foolish.
So Public Works and DPI have talked about this. But talked about it, they actually permit expired. Talked about it. Somebody, right, well, needs to sign up with the line to go where it makes a decision.
What I would have liked them, in knowing what Scott just said, why didn't somebody just call me? So and say, hey, Jeff, you really ought to paper this over. I would have.
I think we've heard good arguments from all the sides.
I do have one question for staff. Even if DPW signs an agreement to use it as a staging area, would it still, I mean, it's still non-compliant, right? Because DPW is asking for it to be used as a non-permitted use in the form district.
Right, we cannot, we being in my department, not issue a permit to the staging of project. This is all about, consuming yet additional time to come.
For example, the city could agree to that no enforcement could take place for an additional X number of period of time so that the city could use that staging.
And we don't really make any statement one way or the other about enforcement. That's true. We find out violation, not violation.
You don't, but you can say it needs to be resolved, within a month.
Right.
Good. So we can say that. All right. Well. Good. With that, you ever thought of just painting it green?
Painting is the thing. With that, I'll close the public hearing on this agenda item.
Oh, wait,
So it's a little.
Wait, someone's on, Kim, sorry, Kim.
Attorney Sturtevant has her hand up.
Good.
Good evening, Kim Sturtevant here, and I just wanted to, there's a few things that I just wanted to touch upon for the board. One, the term's been throwing around about expired. Just in my mind, to be clear, this is a permit that was acted on. And so the question is, compliance with the terms of the conditions of the permit. And we're past the point where the compliance was supposed to occur. And that's, the basis of the notice of violation. Another issue was brought up about nonconformity or statute of limitations about surface parking. In my point of view, that is not an issue for this application, this permit, because there is a permit and an unappealed final permit that was not challenged at the time. It was enacted, and now there's a condition on it that the space needs to be green. So if there was arguments regarding statute of limitations or pre-existing legal nonconformities, those are superseded by the permit that was approved, enacted upon, and is before you now. I think that was sort of the big things I just wanted to touch upon. I mean, what's before the board is just, is there a violation or not on this property right now?
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So with that, I'll close the public hearing.
Just a question, okay.
Yes,
Are you deciding upon this just an extension so we can get the ordinance in place?
we are deciding on how we will rule on the appeal of the notice of violation. Don't know what that's. Yeah, yes. Thank you. All right. So, last item on our agenda is ZP 2465, 140 Grove Street. Request to do a collection of things at a previously approved PUD, including reapproval, renewed approval for maintenance garage. You know, we've seen a series of modifications to your PUD. We know it very well. Just highlight the changes.
Sure, do you want me to swear in?
Yeah, let me swear you in. All those, anybody on Zoom who wants to speak on this too? Sorry.
So raise your hand. We have Caleb Manna from Public Works in case there are questions about the right.
Okay.
We have Sharon Butcher with her hand up.
All right.
So swear Sharon in.
Raise your hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter under consideration is true and correct of the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Far away.
Um,
You are first.
Sure, Nick Smith, I work with West Ireland, and in part the developer here, and I'll just briefly go over some of the changes, that were highlighted in the original letter to the permanent inspections, and that would be, number one, we're trying to come into compliance with a number of things that have happened since our previous permit. Some of these include coverage that's discussed in the zoning report, parking spaces. There's a lot of kind of odds and ends items, some stair removal, items, fence construction items, few other items that are, I guess we can talk about maintenance, and the maintenance garage is, well, a site plan application for the maintenance garages.
So these as-built changes or?
Correct.
Some of these were built and you go.
Yeah, and so what I'm discussing to start is all these changes have already happened. We're asking that as conditions would be accepted by.
And the maintenance garage is new. The maintenance garage was approved originally, that permit was expired, speaking of expired permits, but they still want to build.
Yes, and that was what I was gonna get to. So the maintenance garage, yes, is we are actually asking for application here.
So you get around the building and it lapsed.
Other alterations that we're asking for that have not occurred would be the entrance within the right of way. There's a sidewalk that is supposed to cross the median that we're looking to install. It's just a really.
I like that.
There's a
Yeah.
photo of it, right?
There are photos, but yeah, if you look at the bottom of the page there's.
We have a.
If you go right there, yeah, there you go, you'll see, we're just looking to mark the crosswalks, add a connection point across. We'll see that we're also looking to remove stair encumbrances on this plan. Yeah, adding some additional, so these are all proposed changes here.
Because
Thank you.
Sure. Again, that seems generally nice for DPW. Any issue? Do they have any issue with that sidewalk across?
Not according to the staff.
Yeah, we got comments on just markings, so I assume based on those comments that they were content with all the other proposed changes. So-
Caleb, is that true?
Muted. Caleb, this is your big moment. Hope you're not getting a glass of milk. Well, might have to come back to Caleb. I talked to Caleb and it was consistent.
If I may just help clarify some of that stuff. So yes, some of this stuff was previously approved with the maintenance garage. In the sidewalk that crosses the top. And a few other minor things that we never got to. So when it came time, for example, for us to decide we wanted to build a garage, what kind of city fire. It's really back and get real good. Secondarily, there are some items that are general cleanup, as Nick mentioned, that we need approval for. For example, we have less parking. So this is both the general cleanup and to do some things that we already were supposed to do under the original.
Then the last kind of highlight item that I'll bring up is the overlook that was originally approved for pavilion. We're requesting that based on continued conversations with city and also in combination with just we're unable to get that building constructed up there on our insurance coverage. They just, nobody will give us liability coverage for that essentially. So we're requesting that that would be eliminated, removed from this application, and that we would in lieu pay a fee to the Department of Parks and something that they can do at the park nearby and in lieu of that. So
We talked to them about that.
and they've accepted, seems
So
acceptable.
there's a specific amount that's been agreed to with the Parks Department?
Yes.
A little bit of history on that one. So it was initially conceived by us, the applicant, where the old existing concrete plant is. You'll see if you go by there, you'll see an old ramp. So the thought was what we would do is kind of turn that into something really cool. So in discussions back then with the DRB and Parks and Rec, we thought it would be a really good idea to build this into a kind of a small overlook. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a table on it, and you know, we went so far as got involved with I think there was the bike ped committee, and the idea was people coming down on bikes with a place to stop. Look, it was all a great idea, and we got it approved until we discovered through that process that the city didn't want nothing to do with ownership of it. Subsequently, we found out that our insurance company would not buy this. And so what we're doing now is we're simply went through this exercise. Could we shorten it? Could we make it smaller? Could we do this? Could we do that? There was a plaque dedicating it from the Stu Ireland, who started Stu Ireland, which was the first concrete plant there. And so it was, we really wanted to do it, but we can't. There's not enough room between the green space. It would just create another encumbrance permit. So we had this idea of maybe doing something in lieu of Samantha Park. And hence that.
What's the dollar?
I don't think it really matters.
Oh, I just feel like,
It didn't, I don't know, it's several $1,000s.
is it in the report? Is it a
Yes.
condition?
A number is not a condition, but there is a condition that says they provide the amount of water. So,
Do we have that as something that's provided to staff?
sure.
Yeah, just. Not that I doubt them, just have an appeal here,
Yes,
something that was not
be clear.
so let's just be clear.
Understood.
Because it protects both parties, you know?
That, if I remember correctly, as Scott can probably answer to this, that pavilion, what was there before was used to grant additional height on the buildings that exist. So Ireland has benefited from 3 or 4 buildings of additional height and additional rent revenues as a result of the building that existed.
So we should tell them
Substantial
to,
benefits.
so we should tell them to build it and not get insurance for it?
No, what my point is that it shouldn't be gotten up cheaply because they're greatly benefiting financially from
I-
additional bonuses.
I appreciate that, but I understand you're retired.
Actually, we're still on the payroll.
Are you the Parks Department? So,
No, but
You know, and that's a fair statement, right? Because when we were going through this, that was the basis of a height. But and Scott can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that
that structure was tied to the fact that it needed to stay in order to grant the waiver. We were just trying to make lemonade out of limes with the structure and said it would stay. And ironically, it's collapsed on itself, mostly already, so.
And if I can just jump in too, I would say that the density of this development would be unchanged, whether the heights were the extra stories that were granted. I mean, there's the ability, there would have been the ability at that point to add an additional building and maintain these units as far as rental collection and things like that.
I think. I appreciate that. I think the Parks Department. If they are accepting payment in lieu. Ask for what they could be fair. So.
And then the last item for, I guess, really, obviously, we've talked about a couple times today is the maintenance garage, so we can go over any of the design of that.
Because I know we already saw, basically.
Is it changed at all from the?
It's very, very similar to the original. It's just a refined design.
What's different?
The configuration of the parking and the storage of stockpiling of on-site materials.
Same location generally.
Same location, same size,
Same
right at the same corner, yeah.
Materials, colors.
Materials matching everything that's already existing.
Sharon, you had your hand up?
Sorry, I didn't realize you asked me to unmute, excuse me. Thank you so much. My name is Sharon Busher and I live in this ward, and I had a couple of questions. I think that you addressed one of them or clarified one, but I wanted to once again verify what the maximum height was that was allowed because of the existing tall structure that has been torn down, and there was, you know, all that issue regarding what could be allowed based on what was there. And I think that the height that you said was 50 feet as opposed to 35, but I wasn't clear about that. The other piece had to do with the residential units. Now the maintenance building is for them and not for me to weigh in on necessarily. But the residential units, anything that is built now from now on, and I don't know if this is the last phase, it's just, I go there because I now work for the government for another purpose. And I go there and interact with some of the people who, you know, find the housing quite accommodating. And I'm glad it's there. But the noise issue, so I just knew that, I don't know in new structures if there will be more attention paid to soundproofing, if at all possible, from the noise of the, not only the, I'm not talking about the F-35s. I don't know. I live on East Avenue and, you know, I can't talk to anyone on the phone or anything. So I'm not suggesting you can really overcome that, but just the other noise from the airport, I think is really germane. And in this proposal, there was improvements to, or a modification to the entrance and exit of the going into Bayberry Commons. And I just wanted to understand, was that based on accidents that have occurred there, or is that based on turning radius, or what was the motivation to change that? And is the motivation, and will the DRB look at that to make sure that any necessary improvements are imposed or occur at this opportunity? And the other piece is, you know, pedestrians do cross that entrance and exit, and is that, has that been a problem for pedestrians and mainly those would be occupants of your property, but other people who might be going from Grove to Patchen. So those were the issues that came to mind for me. The last thing, which you can't impose, but I found it when you first proposed this development, I thought that this would be a great place for housing for university staff and medical center staff, and having a shuttle bus like they run other places to bring them to those institutions. I still feel that there was great value in that. That was not entertained seriously. And I regret that when I was a city councilor, I didn't do more to try to make that happen, because there's such a need for creating housing that is in close proximity to where people work. And shuttle service reduces the amount of cars on the road. It's still a vehicle on the road, but fewer vehicles. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there again. I just feel like we are missing opportunities in this community that might not be as costly as initially we thought. So thank you.
I'll address those just item by item. So Scott outlines the building height limitations in the report. It appears in notes of the steel structure was 59 feet, allowed 59 feet in height. 35 is the maximum. Yeah. The height of the building is approximately 50 feet height. So
the zoning code has changed since then, Scott. So you could go to 50 now, essentially, because it's the height of the principal building on site.
As far as, I guess we'll just take note of the construction material and soundproofing on our end.
Yeah, there's not really a building.
Yes. And then I'll move on to the entry. The entry, this is to come into conformance with the previous approval. The modifications really are a little bit of curbing that'll be lower so that we can actually get pedestrian access. So we'll be addressing the pedestrian access across the front. There's no change to turning radius or any configuration.
The same geometry, it's just now across.
Yeah, the long and the short of it is, we never built the sidewalk.
Right.
And
so they cross in front of the island now rather than
right.
through the island.
So. Right, and so now DPW has requested that we alter what was originally proposed and approved.
So the sidewalk goes right through the island.
Really. Exactly. I think it was.
Any more questions from the board?
All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing on this agenda item. We'll deliberate on it. Close now.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Sure. I normally call one that wasn't 12 minutes long. This is the restaurant. Thoughts? So go around and can see all of you. August.
Oh, do the 230 Main Street first.
That's what I asked. Sure. That's what I'm getting. Self-centered on it.
Which ones were you off?
That's okay, Brad.
Both 140s.
Yeah, well, 40s.
Yes, it was.
Yes. And we already approved, Cannon Street.
Yeah.
Oh, we did, right.
For Main Street, regardless of what we do, we can also strongly encourage them to come back and apply for some sort of.
Well, since they don't want to be applied for.
They can do whatever they want, but like,
Well,
after we make our decision.
yeah, right.
Then we continue in non-compliance and back up fees.
What are we talking about?
Make sure.
Why I'm saying, why don't we do Main Street first? It's not